AllReasonNoLogic. G'day to our RTS fanatics. We are in Beyond All Reason, looking at one of our All Reason No Logic King of the Hill specials. This one's a little different. We have added a Super King in the middle of the map. We will get to these rules shortly. I'm Twig, and with me is Pradith. We both partook in this game, and you can also partake in these King of the Hill games. Jump over to our Discord. The link is in the description of the video below. We host these lobbies every week, primarily on Sundays. Let's get to the fun.
You're joining us for a Super Kings King game, where it is 10 around the outside, 5 on the inner ring, and 1 person in the dead center, that person being Raigeki, the best player currently in the world for team games. We'll see whether or not the outside rings can duke it out and still have enough firepower left to defeat the final boss. To have a quick go over with the rules, each one of these triangles is its own separate battlefield until such a time as either the king or the 2 peasants are destroyed, at which point they can spill out into the other sides of the map. All players cannot do anything to each other for the first 10 minutes, and Raigeki is untouchable and cannot touch anyone for the first 15. This gives everyone a bit of a shot to get their ecos up, it balances the fields a little bit, and then it lets everyone duke it out right on the same mark. To make this fair, the Kings have plus 40 and Raigeki has a plus 60. Let's see how this one goes.
I've picked up, Pradith, that you have had to unfortunately take over the base of a second king, which makes it a little bit hard for your micro, APM being required and drained by jumping between 2 bases. A little bit unfortunate for us kings on the hill, and definitely fortunate for Raigeki down the middle there that's sitting in between all of us. We're definitely susceptible to things like Kargis and recluses, termites that can climb up those hills.
Though we have seen in the past when this happened to Raigeki playing as one of the 5 kings, that it turned out to be a boon for him. He managed to leverage all of that eco and turn it into a potentially win. Check out that video if you're interested. But what we see at the moment is more like an APM stall out of me. I'm not quite the same caliber of player, so hopefully I can get some defenses up and at least do some damage, or maybe I'll fall to all 4 of the players that are going to come after me.
What was your tactic in this one? Because you've got 2 bases, so obviously a little bit more economy. Was one of these a eco base and defensive, and the other one attacking base, or did you just try and get a bit of both going?
Oh, look, I could pretend right now that I had some great tactics going, but in reality, my tactic was panic. It was just panic. And yes, but that is essentially what happened. I realized as I was going that I didn't have the control to be able to deal with all of the bases at once. So what I did was I decided that the base I started with was going to be the area where I tried to push out from, and I would just do my best to hold the other one, and then try and sweep back in from the top, leveraging that double eco.
Looking at the skill level on your left-hand base, you're against the 2 of the blue players. Too many blues to commentate on blues, so we're going to have to go with names, I think, in this map. But we got a human being at OS 14 and Fussrodar at 26, so quite a high skill. And then your other base, a couple of our regulars, including AllReasonNoLogic's Tank Tom and Wanira.
Yeah.
So both difficult lanes.
If I had known that Tank Tom and Wanira were against me in my main base, I would have made this one the defensive one, and I would have made the other one the offensive one. I think I would have better odds against the guys I don't normally play with, because I know they're working together on comms, and I know what they're going to do, and I know that they're going to come at me with something harsh. But based on player vision, no one really knows who they're going to be up against until that 10-minute mark.
One thing I've picked up from Raigeki is in the middle, he punches out a lot of the T1 construction bots. He doesn't get into T2 too quickly. He's definitely got the eco with the plus 60 bonus, but I did practice this in one of our games, and you can kind of even see I'm doing it in this base. I got a lot of wind up before I went down and dropped that T2 down pretty much at the same time as Raigeki actually in this game, but I find if you go too early into that T2 and you don't have that energy there to support it, you end up stalling out, which I definitely did it in a couple other games earlier in the night that we played these King of the Hills.
Something which is really good to see out of Atlas Field, the red player, Raigeki and Twig, the way that the ecos are spaced out, it means even if you take some damage, it's not going to be completely fatal. And that's the same with the build turrets as well. They're not actually in range to chain react, and that's going to be a bit of a theme through this game. The spaced out ecos are actually going to really assist as compared to some of the other areas where, if you note some of the outer ring players, these big clumps of wins, they're all just ripe for a chain reaction.
Yeah, no doubt. Luckily, we had air turned off in this game, by the way, for those wondering. Obviously, air would just dominate a map like this.
Similarly, one of the other rules we didn't mention from the get-go is that defensive structures can't be used for offensive purposes. So that means no nuking people, no EMPs, and no long-range artillery, things like the geoguns. We've had those on before for one of the games, and man, those geoguns.
No doubt.
So having a look at everyone's strategy at the 6-minute mark, we see some players have invested in early defenses. If you look at Bondman, he's got some walls up and some LLTs. In my opinion, it's way too early for something like that because you're just spending eco that you otherwise could have spent on your economy to do that, as well as build power. And build power and your eco really are key to surviving this one. You've got to push yourself as hard as you possibly can for about the first 8 minutes. And then after that, you need to do everything you can to overwhelm your opponent, whether that's with some long-range T2, some fiends, a grunt push, a tick push, anything along those lines. That's what it's going to take in order to push you through to that next level.
It's interesting watching the top right-hand corner of the screen where you can see the comparison between the ecos. You can the peasant's definitely starting the fastest, but the king's catching up. And I've just seen after Raigeki has built that advanced geo and starting to get that T2 up, also catching up. I'm curious to see how close these get towards that 10 and 15 minute mark to see who's in the lead for eco. On that note, I got a shootout. I'm going to leave you in the trusty hands of Pradith.
I wouldn't call my hands exactly trusty, but we'll see what I can do.
Enjoy, mate.
Having a quick look, exactly as Twig was saying, Raigeki is now getting his T2 income online. He actually went with the advanced geo as one of the earliest buildings, and then he's going into his advanced metal extractors, which will see a huge spike, because with those plus 60s, they're actually bringing in 8.1 metal each, and with all the conversion, they're bringing in. Each one's only bringing in the 1 metal, but because the energy's up by 60%, you can use 60% more of them. As we approach that 8-minute mark, now is the time when you should get ready to pump the eco. Coming out of one of our top players, Rakusha, a frequent player on the channel. He's getting ready with a massive tick spam to overwhelm Twig, and right now Twig has nothing beyond a couple of LLTs. Looks like he's going to get a few Dragon Claws, but that's not going to be a huge amount of defense ready. He'll definitely need some units. Getting that first fusion up, jumping down to myself with that double eco. I've definitely got a bit of an edge getting my first fusion up. Don't have a second one coming over on this side, but with the shared eco, should provide me some ability to keep this going. Looking at what I'm planning for defenses, I'm getting build turrets up, pop-ups, and soon to be some Dragon's Maws, just to try and deal with the spam and to try and deal with any sort of chunky units. Quick look at the eco. Right now, the kings are now about even with the peasants around the outside, and Raigeki is catching right back up to the entire crew. His eco drops down whenever he's consuming a lot of power, because a lot of his eco is from those converters. But with all of these T2 extractors coming up and with extra power coming online, he's really going to have a good time in the middle. Looking around the outside, very, very strong play from Baby Oil. He's got himself. He's 30 seconds away, and he is full of fiends. Jumping down to a couple of the other players. Defensive play. Defensive play. Nothing. Nothing yet. Nothing yet. Defensive play, but with a huge amount of ticks to overwhelm. And nothing yet. Couple of fiends. Mass ticks. And just a couple of units. One of the things that you have to do as the outer ring is get ready to absolutely dominate the inside players. And Orange knows this, getting ready with some ticks. And why we had a question just asked up here, is that legal? It does not reach the enemy base, so it is legal. And we've hit that 10-minute mark, so units moving out. Red is pushing down with a large amount of grunts, but all of these ticks are coming in for Winera. Heading on in, those beamers causing mass destruction along with the welders. Still managing to push on in, but we see LLTs all around the base, so great job defending from Twig, minimum damage done. Up on my side, we've had a huge amount of ticks push on in, though thankfully it's only converter damage and wind damage, my fiends cleaning those ones up. Red absolutely crushing his way through these bases. He saw the front line was not available as a viable option of pushing in, so pushes in through the back. And that is all the build power gone, and it looks like that's going to be all the eco gone. The half of the army that went over here has been destroyed, but it has killed the comm. So no build power, no power for this player, only whatever leaks in. One of the kings completely destroyed. We'll have to snap back and show that one as it happens. But it looks like 4 of the kings have managed to defend, and 2 of the peasants are effectively down. Myself in a middle ground where, because I have those 2 bases, not in too bad of a position. Another little attempted tick push here, but these welders, absolute MVPs, pushing this back, and now Twig is making his way out of the base. The slow push from these welders, however, the only thing they're really going to be fighting against is units they're going to do very, very well against. And a quick look at that eco. Winera is still, Raigeki in the middle, still a little bit behind, but the peasants and the kings very much so on an even playing field. Blue is getting ready to assault red with a large number of fiends. This is a lot of LLTs, and all of those are dragon's teeth, so only walls, not actually pop-up defenses. So we'll see whether this can push past, but that is a lot of potential damage ready to come on down. Twig getting up in here with these welders. Could potentially snipe the comm if he's quick enough on the reaction, but welders with a move speed of 47 and the comm with a move speed of unsure. Looks like a little bit faster though, so all okay there. Here comes an attack on my flank. Unfortunately, not quite enough here to defend it. The pop-ups are great, but I just needed more of these Dragon Wars, so it looks like I'm about to lose my second eco base. And as is happening over to here, the fiends have managed to push in on red, though most of them destroyed. A couple is enough, though, to punch on through. Huge amounts of damage being done. They'll probably be cleaned up by the explosions of those wind turbines, but that is a absolutely messy amount of damage. A couple of MVP units here trying to do as much damage as they can, but not quite managing. Continued assault on this side. This time it is Sheldon's backing up those ticks, but with these fiends marching on through, fiends with a much faster speed than the Sheldons, provided I don't pull these back and don't miss micro them, they should be able to punch on through and get into Tank Tom's base. The Blue Siege is continuing, units streaming on in, snipers taking these out as best they can, but those fiends, as soon as they get in and do some damage, they just have such high DPS. And the continuous stream in of pawns over here just not going to be quite enough. Tank Tom managing to clean up my fiends with good D-guns, but there's another wave coming. Twig is getting right on in to Rakusha's base. Those hounds managing to push through those defenses. These guys stuck on T1, so no luck on managing to defend against Twig's T2 power play. But if you look at the kings, with 2.5 kings essentially destroyed, the eco is well and truly down for them. So there just isn't going to be that huge eco boom, even with that plus 40, that will allow the kings to really push on through. And with blue continuing to clean up red, this is turning into a two pony fight for the for the Kings team. Fiends managing to push on into Wanira's base. These things absolutely devastating with damage and fast. This is why I continue to use them for quite a period of the game. Only chance that I really have to get back into this after all of the damage that was done to me early. Just got to keep pushing those in. Tank Tom continuing with the Sheldons, hoping to punch through the base, but definitely needs some other units. Something which is good against Fiends, and though it's a little bit expensive, is those Mammoths. Blue has expanded and reclaimed a bunch of the King's territory and is expanding, so his eco is going to boom as well. But the 15-minute mark is just starting now, and Raigeki is coming online. Right now, looking at his eco, he is the highest eco in the game. He's got himself 11 fusions, all at plus 60%, so he's going to start dealing a lot of damage, though not quite yet. Fiends punching on into Tank Tom's base. These guys winning the day against those Sheldons, and Twig punching on into the top base. So the two remaining Kings have effectively punched their way through their players, and will have to try and circle around or run into the center to deal with Raigeki. But because of the way the map is currently set up, it's two Kings on one side, essentially without much in the way of opposition, and then all of the peasants on the other side, which means that realistically Raigeki could be tag teamed from both sides, but that 500 metal really is starting to let him pump away. Mass grunt spam is coming on out towards the blue player, and we'll see whether his Fiends can keep these in check or not. These grunts don't actually have to be efficient, they just have to trade enough that he can slowly overwhelm the blue player. T2 army taken out by the T1, and a little bit of T2, but nothing too crazy going on right there. Fiends just set up to head on down and try and destroy more of the peasant players. Definitely a mistake right here. The peasants are significantly less of a threat at this point in the game than Raigeki is, especially considering that he is marching Kargis all over the map. So if you're paying a bit of attention to how this works, tier 3 is probably going to be the end of everyone here. These units able to walk up the back of the cliff, only spider-based terrain units capable of doing that in the game. And Green cleaning everything up. He would have been cleaning up one of my bases if I hadn't already been destroyed. Fiends doing the last bit of cleanup here, missed some of that wind. Technically, the rules are not to leave the triangle until you've won, but the win condition is sort of a little bit on the self-judgment side of things. There's no recovery for those players, so that is counted as a win. Twig certainly stalling with his attack and trying to get some eco up, try and do what he can against this. Fiend walls keeping these grunts at bay, at least for the moment, but we've got all of the Karganeths punching on through, though a couple of them do get taken out over here. The Sheldons managing to keep these at a decent range, and the Sumos tanking nicely, getting as much damage in as possible. My Fiends trying to push into this walled-in base. As we said before, one of the things you have to do with this is be very offensive against the Kings. This is a good defense, but the defense will fall to T2 almost no matter what, because T2 is just great with range, great with damage, great with speed, and the Karganeths are rolling into the other blue base. Looking at all this, we've got Twig getting ready for another counterattack against the peasants. Definitely not the direction we need to be going in. It 100% needs to be towards Raigeki, but this is our first time with a super king that is taking over the map. So we've got a bit of experience. We have a little bit to learn before we can get good experience under our belt. Huge wind here. One Karganeth, can he get the wind before he gets degunned? No, he cannot. I want to see that chain reaction. Fiends cleaning up this player. Doesn't take many Fiends to deal with something like Mausers. Great with the long range, but the Fiends can just close on them so fast. And these guys are just on a fight command to push on in. And the rest of the Fiends currently heading into that base, but they'll soon turn around, realizing that the greatest threat is Raigeki, but might be a little bit too late. Another great D-gun, just catching the tail end of that one, getting another Kargi, but that comm is on nothing left. and this eco is just pulling all ahead. Raigeki's still on around about 400 income, 400 to 500 income, depending on how much power he's drawing. And the Kargi's coming up to one of the kings, one of the last hopes of the game. These Kargi's are just way too strong coming up the back of the hills. Absolutely destroying all the defenses here. You definitely need a lot of pop-ups. You definitely need something that can shoot down the hill, some potentially arbiters or something along those lines, to try and do the best you can. Twig getting the D-guns in best he can, but the Kargi's can now see the comm, and Kargi's so much damage so quickly. And even though he's managed to hide his comm again, you saw a couple of shots getting on them as they got vision range, and the other Kargi's just punching on through. Twig is essentially out of the running. Just going to try and do the best he can with those D-guns. 2 more Kargi's go down, but there's 1 more. Can Twig escape with his comm? Ooh, invisible just in time. But that's 1 more Kargi. He's seen the invisible. Ooh, Twig manages to D-gun his own fusion, and that is Twig effectively out of the game. How many more D-guns can he get before he is completely wiped out? Will he even try? Or is he just going... Nope, looks like he is going after his Kargi's, but the Kargi's do not care about Twig. The Kargi's are heading on to their next victim. Couple of stray missiles, and that's Twig's comm down. Last king. I'm currently the last king, and the only reason that I'm the last king is because of the mercy of Raigeki, which is running out right now. 4 dragons pumping on in, getting my 2 comms. I should be able to take out these with my 2 comms and last for a little while. Dragons coming in there. Sorry, not dragons. Mammoths coming in. Those are my best bet right now, but just look at the damage of those dragons. Comms trying to be invisible and march on in, but no dice. And that is the end of all the kings. There are just 4 players left for the peasant side, but one of them is only just getting a couple of units out. One of them has been pushed back, and the other 2 very, very defensive. Looking at the ecos, it is still actually reasonably equal eco-wise. So the blue players definitely do have a chance, but all of that T3 concentrated into one player, all the resources concentrated into one player. This is going to be very, very tough for these players to deal with. Grunt spam pushing on in, but these Sheldons are holding the line, at least for now. But on this side, nothing to contest. And we've got Bondman, who is fighting a couple of the grunts that have reached the end of their build path, but they're about to be flooded by more of them coming on in. Though one of the things that you can abuse with the Super King is the fact that he can only be looking at one place at once, so you have to try and pick him apart in a coordinated strike. Though I don't quite see that as being possible with all of these units bearing on down to 1 more of the players. 4 Mammoths here to defend. Mammoth's definitely the best unit you could have in this situation, but they're just not going to be enough. I keep calling these dragons, but demons. Very, very, very high DPS, and they're at least tanky enough that they can take these shots to start with. One of these demons getting into the wind, and that is going to be some major chain reactions. Great damage there, and that's going to be effectively the end of this player. That one demon still pushing on through. He's about to find the fusions. The Aphis not managing to get up, and that is the end of this player. This Sheldon Ball still doing its absolute best to defend this, managing to take out a couple of the Kargis, keeping the grunt spam at bay, a couple of slipping through but getting cleaned up by the LLTs. But eventually these units will fall. Every little bit of damage is important, because the green player is now up to 1,000 income while he's reclaiming, and he will just absolutely overwhelm the players. He only has to do little bits of damage here and there to eventually punch through the peasants. But I am really liking the micro out of Atlan. Atlan is keeping these Kargis at bay just through the range advantage of the Sheldons and the Deceivers, which are keeping them from firing unless they have actual vision range. Big push down on this side. Again, the peasants doing the best they can with Mammoths, and when you see them get the surround bonus on these Kargis, they take them down before the Kagi can take them down. But the units are still pouring through. They're still finding new ways in. And as good as this spam is, these demons getting in the back line, and that is production all the way down to 2 players. Hound's trying to do the same thing on this side as the Sheldons, but I would definitely switch these over from heavy plasma to Gauss, so they have those more accurate shots for dealing with the reasonably fast grunts. They'll definitely do slightly better with the heavy plasma on the Kagis, but mobility and destroying these fast units is going to come into play. But the Kagis are just pushing on through, and the dragons continuing on from the sides. There definitely is not enough defense to stop these 2 dragons, these 2 demons. Apologies for keeping on calling them dragons. Dragons, big flying ships with flamethrowers, hence the confusion. And once these demons get into the eco, that is down to the 1 player. And everything seems to definitely have been favoured for Raigeki. We did play this game mode earlier, and the Super King was annihilated, but the Kings also didn't manage to put up as much of a fight against the other players, and so the Super King was not able to get up this level of tier 3 and just overwhelm the rest of the players. Some comments saying 60 was too much with a player like Raigeki in the middle. It's definitely a factor, but with 100 APM and fighting on all these fronts, he certainly earned the victory regardless of whether he had 10% more, 15% more than what he actually needed, and that is a surrender out of the peasants. Quick look at the statistics, and this is where something which quick look at the
battle ended.
Quick look at the graphs. This is one of the areas where this plus 60 can really show just how hard it eco booms you. So looking at the metal produced, that is an absolute huge boom for Raigeki, and looking at the damage dealt, definitely a lot of damage, but again, it's 1 player versus many, so the stats are a little bit on the skewed side. Really enjoyed this game, and it was a masterclass in exactly how to win from that middle position. Join us for the next one, where you can watch me in the middle position, and I cannot say that I am quite as good as Raigeki. So congratulations on Raigeki for the win, and a big thanks to our community who help us police these lobbies. It's very, very difficult to run these lobbies because there are no rule sets in mind for a King of the Hill game type. So everyone does their bit to make sure that everyone knows the rules and that everyone tries their best to play by them, as we try and get these in for a good bit of fun. If you enjoyed the video, jump on down into the comments and let us know. Leave a like and a subscribe, and if you want to play with us, jump into our Discord. Description in the link in the description. Thanks everyone for watching, and we'll catch you next time.